Steve, we all set?
All set?
Everybody ready? Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Today, we want to give you an idea how the NYPD is going to be approaching the next few days in terms of deployment and resources, personnel leading up to the 4th of July celebration. Mayor de Blasio is going to speak in a moment. Chief Carlos Gomez is going to lay out what our deployment is. Chief Jim Waters is going to speak about that counterterrorism overlay we always talk about. And Chief Chan is also going to be talking about DWI enforcement. I can tell you that there are currently no specific credible threats against the July 4th celebration or the city. And many people are working very hard behind the scenes to ensure that everyone that lives in, works in, or visits New York City on Tuesday has the opportunity to safely enjoy the greatest annual fireworks show in the country. There are many ways the NYPD will be keeping you safe on and around the holiday, but as I talk about all the time, that doesn't mean anyone in the city should ever let their guard down. And I tell you at every opportunity, if you see something out there that makes you feel uncomfortable, that doesn't look right, you have to remain vigilant, you have to be aware. If you see that, call 911 or flag down a cop, give us the opportunity to investigate. Because remember, public safety is a shared responsibility. Planning and securing these types of events is what the New York City Police Department does on a daily basis. And it's not an overstatement to say that the hardworking men and women of the NYPD do it better than any other police department anywhere. The 4th of July detail this year will include our 400 newest police officers. They'll have the opportunity to work on their first holiday. Told them that all yesterday. I told them I'd see them out there because I'll be working also. Now, I'm sure that building on the NYPD's legacy of keeping our city safe will mark the beginning of many great careers for these young cops. And what I'd like to take away, people to take away from the NYPD's preparation is this. They're going to have one of the most well-policed, best protected events anywhere in the nation. We're going to have another safe and enjoyable Independence Day celebration like we do every day. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, congratulations on the graduation yesterday, which was another very good day for the NYPD. And thank you for the great work you and your team have done in preparing for the 4th of July. So I want to thank everyone up here. People have been working hard on these preparations. Particularly want to thank First Deputy Mayor Tony Shorus, who, as always, leads the efforts of all the different city agencies to coordinate and prepare for major events like 4th of July. Special thanks to Chief of Department Carlos Gomez and Chief of Patrol Terry Monahan for their leadership, and thanks to everyone present. So look, when it comes to the 4th of July, we think about several different things. First of all, it's one of the great celebrations in the year. It's a chance for people to really enjoy themselves, families to be together, friends to be together. We want people to do it safely. And the first concern we have is that people act responsibly. It's great to celebrate, but you got to celebrate in a smart way. So we're really concerned to make sure that people don't drink and drive, don't take chances that could ruin other people's lives. And NYPD will be out there in force to make sure everyone is safe. We are very proud to be the safest big city in America. That's something we have to earn every single day, and that includes on a holiday weekend. So NYPD will be out in force to keep everyone safe. Now, we think about the everyday realities we have to face in fighting crime. We think about the particular challenges of a holiday weekend. Of course, we know the world we're living in. The NYPD is constantly focused on preventing acts of terror. As the Commissioner said, there are no specific and credible threats directed at New York City and directed at these celebrations. That being said, all of our specialized commands will be out in force, the Critical Response Command, the SRG, ESU. Everyone will be on alert as a matter of course, even though there are no specific threats we're dealing with. You'll see, and I want to tell all New Yorkers to be ready for this and see this as a good thing. You will see well-armed police officers with long guns. You'll see the vapor wake dogs. That's something we do around every major gathering. That's what keeps us safe. So do not be alarmed by that. Our officers are there to protect you, and we believe in strength in numbers, and you'll see that visibly on July 4th. Now, as I said, unfortunately, the other part of the equation is keeping people safe from some more mundane realities. And sadly, the July 4th time of year, that's usually one of the deadliest weekends of the year when it comes to traffic fatalities. We're going to be responding to that very, very aggressively, proactively. You'll see a lot more enforcement in terms of DWI. You will see random checkpoints around the city. I want to tell everyone that in advance. If you are surprised when you roll up to a checkpoint, you shouldn't be, because you're going to see checkpoints at times like this, because it's part of what we do under Vision Zero to keep people safe. And NYPD is going to be very, very aggressive and will not tolerate drunk driving. Just don't take the chance of destroying someone else's life, and there will be real consequences. So that's the enforcement side, but we want to incentivize as well. And so there's an excellent effort that's been put together as part of a larger campaign called Know Your Limit. You will hear from both our Transportation Commissioner and our TLC Commissioner in a moment. But one of the great things in this Know Your Limit campaign is that through the Curb app, you can get $10 off each cab ride over this holiday weekend to encourage people to take a cab instead of driving if you might be under the influence. So that's something that's going to make it easier for people to get around and not take chances. Obviously, with that discount available, that's a great reason to take a cab. Mass transit, obviously, is always a good option. Just plan ahead so you're not in a situation where you're trying to get home and you're under the influence and you feel the only choice left to you is to take a chance you shouldn't take. So we're going to be out there on those fronts, and also, as per usual, on July 4th weekend, we're concerned about illegal fireworks. So NYPD will be out there very aggressively on that as well. Look, we've seen some real tragedies around illegal fireworks. We don't take it lightly at all. If you have them, expect the NYPD to find them. There's at least a summons related to having illegal fireworks. It could be worse depending on the circumstances. So there are real consequences. Everyone needs to take that seriously. But that being said, we feel very, very prepared. I will always want to credit the leadership of the NYPD, the men and women who patrol our streets, and all the other agencies who are part of this. Every time we have a big celebration, there are dozens of agencies that get involved. Everyone's prepared. This is one of the things that makes me proudest as mayor of this city, is how prepared all of our agencies, all of our public servants are to handle big moments like this. So expect a great weekend, expect a lot of fun, and know that there are a lot of people working hard to keep you safe. Now, a few words in Spanish. Queremos que todos los neoyorquinos disfruten un 4 de julio con alegría y diversión. La policía van a estar trabajando duro para garantizar la seguridad de todos. Por favor, les pedimos a todos que se diviertan de manera responsable y, si beben, no manejen. With that, I want to first turn to our Transportation Commissioner, and then why don't we have them both come up, our Transportation Commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, and our TLC Commissioner, Mira Joshi, to talk about some of the special measures that have been taken for the holiday weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to underscore, you've mentioned the programs we're going to be focusing on this weekend, Know Your Limit, and my colleague will talk about the CURB program. I just want to underscore some of the statistics and the message, because we found in our Vision Zero campaign, which has been, we're proud of our success, we know we have more to do, then we get the messages out to the public, and the media helps us with that. We really see that it has an effect on people's behavior and their public awareness. So just a reminder, some of the statistics that are involved at this time of year, from between Memorial Day and July 4th, we typically see a quarter of the drunk driving related fatalities. And one of the things we're seeing, the National Safety Council is predicting this year potentially a real record of traffic fatalities. There's a lot of driving activity. So again, we want to get the message out to New Yorkers. Please, as the mayor had said, you don't need to drink and drive. We have so many other transportation alternatives. This has typically, unfortunately, been a holiday weekend where we see a lot of tragedies on our roadways, and obviously we want to make sure the public has the message to help us keep those numbers down, to help us with Vision Zero and keeping New Yorkers safe on our streets.
Good morning, and I want to underscore, we want everybody to go out and celebrate this weekend, and we want them to get home safely. So we're fortunate to live in a city with a tremendous abundance of for-hire options of car services. To sweeten the pot, we have an offer. Anyone who downloads the Curb app can use a green or yellow taxi between 7 p.m. and 4 a.m. They put in the promo code NODWI, no DWI, and they'll get $10 off every ride. And this is a way of giving back. The city's partnered with the app. We're using some of the money that is brought in through enforcement against DWI to give back to people, to give them a way to get home safely and enjoy the 4th of July weekend. So be safe, everyone, and avail yourselves of all the for-hire services we have out there.
Say the days again and the
Oh,
hours.
the days are Friday, so it starts today at 7 p.m. and goes till 4 a.m. the following Saturday, then again Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and Tuesday. So the entire 4-day weekend.
Thanks very much. Tommy's first? Okay. Let's get our batting order right here.
Okay. Good morning. As the mayor mentioned and also the commissioners, we have our highway patrol, which will be working on highways, and also our 77 precincts throughout the city, working on the city streets that are on high alert for drunk drivers and people who are driving under influence. So our officers, through this weekend and July 4th, will be seeking to arrest drivers who are under the influence. So certainly know your limit, plan ahead with a designated driver. Barbecues is not an open invitation to consume large quantities of alcohol. If you love your car, if you need your car to go on vacation, or you need it to commute to work, then do not drink and drive, because we will seek to take permanent possession of your vehicle for forfeiture if you drink while you're drunk, okay? Thank you.
Good message.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Next Tuesday's July 4th celebrations on both banks of the East River, as well as other parts of the city, will be very well policed and very secure events. There are many layers of security involved, which I'll describe in a few moments. Several thousand uniform officers, including the 408 recruits that graduated yesterday from the academy, will be assigned to security and counterterrorism functions throughout the day. The main event certainly is the Macy's fireworks celebration here on the East River. It still commences at 9:20 p.m., but there are some changes in the configuration and placement of the barges that the public should know, because it may impact the viewing areas. There will still be 5 barges. They will be anchored from 41st Street down to 24th Street. But the difference this year is that there will be no barges south of 24th Street, no barges by the Brooklyn Bridge. So certainly that could impact viewers down in Lower Manhattan and in parts of Brooklyn. Early Tuesday afternoon, we'll be operating the Joint Operations Center, which is this very impressive. We will close the FDR Drive. So certainly that's going to have an adverse impact on traffic. We encourage those that are attending the celebration to utilize public transportation. And for that reason, we've added more resources, more officers in our transit system, our transportation, and our transportation hubs. At around 6:30 p.m., we will allow spectators onto the viewing areas on the FDR Drive. And as a reminder to all that choose to attend, please do not bring coolers, no backpacks, no large packages, no alcohol, no lawn chairs, and no umbrellas. I know it's going to be a nice, sunny, hot day, but no umbrellas. You won't be allowed in it in the event with them. Certainly, you will be subject to bag checks, and this is to ensure your safety as well as the safety of all the spectators. Several thousand uniform officers will be on security posts in the viewing areas and the surrounding streets. Those are the officers that you'll be able to see. There will be a good amount of officers attired in civilian clothes that will be mingling in with the crowds to detect any suspicious activity or behavior. Something new this year, we'll be utilizing over 100 blocker vehicles and almost 20 sand trucks. We're going to have heavy weapons teams at all the venues here in Manhattan, as well as the outer boroughs, and Chief James Waters will go into greater detail in a few moments about that. Counterterrorism officers will be working. They'll have radiation detection devices on their person. Explosive detective canines will be deployed, and we will have officers on rooftop posts monitoring the crowds below. The large fleet of our harbor unit will be out patrolling in the East River as well as the Hudson, and we will be utilizing the aviation unit to monitor rooftops, crowds, and traffic from above. Additional officers, as I stated earlier, will be assigned to the subway stations near the event areas, and they will be conducting more bag checks, and they will be deploying more canines in the system. Throughout the city and all of our precincts, additional officers will be assigned to address the anticipated increase in call volume. It's certainly a very busy tour, at 4 to 12 into the late tour. They'll also be there to conduct fireworks enforcement and to monitor large crowds that may gather at parks, large house parties that may become problematic later that evening. Reminder to all that not only are fireworks dangerous, and each year we certainly have some terrible injuries, but they're also illegal. And we've commenced our fireworks enforcement in this department. It will continue throughout the weekend. We know where the hotspots are. We have officers in civilian attire that will be focusing their efforts in those locations. And we urge the public to utilize 311 if you have information of storage locations or where these fireworks are being sold, and certainly call 911 if they're being detonated at that moment. And so far this year, we've effected 27 arrests for fireworks. We've issued many summonses, and we've had 41 confiscation incidents. Commitment to Vision Zero, as Tom Chan stated earlier. There will be sobriety checkpoints throughout the weekend in many parts of the city. And as the Commissioner said, safety is a shared responsibility. There'll be a million eyes and ears out there Tuesday. If you see something, if you hear something, certainly tell an officer or call the New York City Terror Hotline, 888-NYC-SAFE. And we look forward to having a very safe evening Tuesday. Hope to see you out there. Thank you.
On Tuesday, the 4th of July, you'll see a robust counterterrorism presence in the city and on the detail for the firework display. Let me take you just through a quick walkthrough of what that will look like. There are 15 entry points in Manhattan, and there are entry points in both Brooklyn and Queens, and each of them will be replicated pretty close to exact. So you'll be subject to bag checks. There will be no large bags, there'll be no backpacks, but we will take a look through your bags if you come with bags. You will be passing through officers who have radiation detection equipment on their gun belts. You will see a long gun, counterterrorism, critical response command, striker team at each entry point. And behind all of that, you'll see one of our either vapor wake or explosive detection canine dogs taking up the rear. So you will have to pass through that gauntlet, if you will, of security measures before you reach the area where you can enter up onto the FDR Drive. In addition to that, our bomb squad will be working throughout the 5 boroughs, both response teams and teams that are assigned to the detail. And there are a lot of things that you won't see. So we rely heavily on our technology. So there's several hundred cameras either in the area or placed in the area for this event, as well as our radiation detection and our buyer watch systems to better protect the city. I think the message is very clear from the mayor, the police commissioner, the chief of department. The message is come out and enjoy our nation's 241st birthday. The NYPD and the city as a whole are well experienced, rich in experience in protecting the city each and every day, and we're very experienced at policing and protecting large details and large gatherings. Thank you.
We're going to start off with questions about the 4th of July celebration, and we can transition to other police-related topics So we can transition to mayoral topics after that. We're going to start with 4th of July.
All right, if you couldn't hear Steve, we're going to start out with on topic. All right.
Explain the reason for the blocker trucks. And there are 100, there are 20 sand-filled and 100
Sure.
the other vehicles.
Yeah. Again, something I talk about every time I speak is that we have to pay attention to what's going on, not just in the city. We have to pay attention to what's going on in the nation and the world. We saw what happened in Nice. So ever since Nice, we've deployed sand trucks and blocker vehicles at all our major events. Yep.
Commissioner, I wonder, obviously the big event is the big targets, but the other thing we've seen around the world is that, maybe it's smaller targets that are now kind of an opportunity for terrorists when all eyes are on the big thing.
Right.
So how does that factor in on Tuesday?
That's something that we factor in every day of the week. If you look at what we've done over the last 3.5 years, we built up our capacity to protect and respond with the Strategic Response Group and the Critical Response Command. So there'll be people deployed all over the city. And this is something that we take into account each and every day. Yep.
Are you doing anything differently this year than last year?
If we were, I probably wouldn't tell you right now. It's the 4th of July. It's a great event. It's multiple venues. It's across the river. It's Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan. So there are things that we do differently every year, but I'm not going to go into the specifics of that. You sure may.
Of the barges upriver have anything to do with security?
Say that again?
Movement of the barges upriver, does
Right.
that have anything to do with security?
Well, we have our harbor units out there escorting them. So their placement.
Yeah. No.
Their placement? No,
Stacy's decision.
no. It's for maximum so that the most number of people can see it. Yep. Dean.
You mentioned the three boroughs, and what about security in Brooklyn and Queens? We hear a lot about Manhattan.
We're using resources all over the city. That's why we have our Queensboro commander here and our Brooklyn Borough commander here also. That encompasses the whole detail. It's not just Manhattan centric. They're at the barges are in the East River, so we have to be just as concerned about the Brooklyn side and the Queens side. Rocco.
Beyond Times Square, are there any other locations where the city intends to put permanent bollards in?
Beyond the 4th of July?
No, I'm saying just a little bit off topic. Beyond the bollards that.
Yeah, let's wait until we go all the way off topic. Then we can
Stay
talk
on
about
4th
that.
of July
Okay?
first.
All right.
4th of July.
All right. All right, Rocco, I think we can get back to you now. All right.
Beyond the bollards in Times Square, do you anticipate installing bollards?
Yeah, it's
elsewhere?
something that Jim orders people in counterterrorism do. We are looking at additional locations to install bollards.
Can you say where, Commissioner?
What? I'm not going. No, not right now. Juliet.
Yeah, the DA, Cy Vance, says he will be not prosecuting fare beating. What is your response to that, and how do you go forward?
Listen, we're always looking for ways to reduce online arrest for a number of different reasons. We want to be as fair as possible, and we also want to make sure that we're keeping the maximum number of uniforms out on patrol, especially in the subway. Enforcement is down in the subway, but we have to take a real serious look. If we're going to make a move like that, what are the implications for public safety? Everybody knows I started out as a transit cop, and you have to control the entry area. So fare evasion enforcement is an important part of keeping everybody in this city safe. So we'll work with the DA. I think we have a great relationship with Cy in his office, and we'll work with the other district attorney's offices as we move forward. Yeah.
Commissioner, just curious what your position is on the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. Do you support it?
I'm not. The way we have it now, I think it's important that we maintain that. We've done a number of things over the last couple of years. If it's just possession, it's a violation now. But if it's smoking in public, it's still a misdemeanor arrest, and I think it's important that we maintain that position. And that's based on the complaints that we receive citywide through 311 and the community council meetings that I attend. So it's important that we still have the ability to do that.
Do you mind that the police have to dedicate a significant amount of resources to it? Do you have a personal stance on the question of legalization?
We have. Dermot's here. I think we have a reduction in marijuana arrests this year. So this is something. Again, this is part of the low level quality of life things that I'm talking about. But we have to keep in mind public safety. You know, I was at a community council meeting in Queens South a number of months ago, and someone got up and spoke about quality of life enforcement and how maybe it was unfair. And then after the meeting ended, as I was walking out, I was confronted by about 20 homeowners that said, listen, you need to keep doing this. This makes us feel safe. So, you know, who do I listen to? I have to listen to everybody in this city. Miles.
Two things. If we can get an update on the cyclist who was hit in Brooklyn and the criminal mischief situation in 108.
All right, Tom, do you have the cyclist? Okay. And Bob?
In the confines of the 8th precinct, Central Avenue and Linder Street, we had a bicyclist who was struck at the intersection at that location. What happened is that initially it was thought that the vehicle left the scene. The vehicle did remain at the scene, and I believe that the EMS treated and the individual did stop at the time. We had possession of the vehicle at the time. We were looking to determine the owner. What happened was that prior to the arrival of the police, the driver, after the people were treated at the scene, left the scene subsequently. But we do have possession of the vehicle, so again, that individual is being treated at Kings County Hospital.
Driver being charged?
At this time, we're looking to determine who the driver is. Now, we won't know whether he's licensed, he's suspended, so it's unknown at this time. We're still under investigation.
Did he run off, or did he maybe not realize he struck the bicyclist?
I don't have that information, but what happened is that the vehicle, after having collided with the individual, did remain at the scene because we have EMS and some other statements that indicated he remained on the scene, but he left prior to the arrival of the police department.
And Chief, on the 108 precinct, do you know that? Criminal mischief? No? My boss is asking.
Our heart bleeds for you.
So give us a couple minutes after this is over, and we'll get something back to you. Yeah, in the front row.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the DA announcement. So they said that they're working with the NYPD so they give summonses instead of arrests. Who would be the individuals that you consider giving summonses instead of arrests?
Well, right now, if you beat the fare, there's about 75% of the people get summonses. They get the Transit Adjudication Bureau summonses, and then about 25% of the people get processed. So we're looking to, and we'll work with Cy's office to reduce the number. I think last year there were 9,400 TOS theft of service arrests in Manhattan. And I think there's ways that working with his office we can reduce that number to keep uniforms back out on patrol. And there's a recidivism policy that we'll probably be working with, and this isn't a conversation that just started yesterday. So we've been talking to Cy for a while, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to move forward and the best way to keep everybody safe in the subway. I think it's important to control the entry areas. It is. It's how we keep the city safe and the subway safe. Juliet?
On if people actually pay the fines and deal with the summonses?
We can get some tab information for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, which is the Transit Adjudication Bureau. John?
Commissioner, Carlos Fernandez, head of the JTTF, the FBI, is retiring today. Can you just describe your relationship with the JTTF in the past and going forward when Mr. Fernandez was replaced?
It's a big loss for the FBI, and I think it's a big loss for the NYPD too. I talk about Bill and Carlos all the time, but I'm sure Bill will be able to put somebody in that spot that will continue to help us keep the city safe. Carlos,
Sweeney, right?
yeah.
Tell them who you mean.
What's that?
Tell them who you mean when you say.
Bill Sweeney, the Assistant Director in charge. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Assistant Director in charge of the New York office of the FBI. Now, Carlos has been in this business a long time. I wish him the best of luck, and we're gonna miss working with him. But I'm sure we'll be able to find somebody just as capable. Yeah. In the back. Yeah.
I was wondering if you and the mayor could speak to this. But this morning, an activist confronted the mayor while he was working out at the gym. I'm wondering if there are any security concerns about the fact that he works out at a publicly accessible Y, or I guess accessible to members, that the critics or activists can just walk up and speak to him or confront him directly the way they did today.
Yeah, it's not. First of all, I've been going there now 3.5 years as mayor. I think it's the first time that particular type of thing happened, but it's not publicly accessible. You had to go into a YMCA, you have to be a member, or you have to have an authorized pass. So if that person had that, then they violated the rules of the Y, and they're not allowed to be there anymore. So I'm not surprised at people coming up and offering their opinion that they should do it in the right place. They want to do that outside on the public sidewalk, that's great. They want to show up at City Hall, that's great, or one of my events, God bless America. But you don't go into a private organization with a membership policy and violate the policy that's directed at everyone. It's not just about me. You know, there's a policy in place to protect all people who are members of the Y. It's a pretty important organization in our society, the YMCA, and it has a set of rules that's true all over the city, all over the country, and you can't violate those rules, and that's what the guy did. You can't disrupt other people in the middle of doing their, you know, private time, and that's just obvious. Think about I don't know if you go to the gym. I hope you do. Think about it. If you're in the gym or any other place, you go to you name it, any kind of place that you're a member of, people are not allowed to disrupt your time there. It's pretty simple.
What happened to that person?
I think he was just asked to leave.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you about the Manhattan DA's policy of not prosecuting these low-level offenses like yourself, but it's other offenses too that I would assume.
Well, I haven't seen everything that DA Vance is talking about, but let me affirm a couple of points. You just heard, I think there's a lack of information out there. On fare evasion, 75% of the time, it is a summons. To get to arrest, and you know a lot about day-to-day life in the city, to get to arrest, you have to have done it a bunch of times or have an outstanding serious warrant or some other factor, typically. So I'm the first to say, I don't think anyone should ever be a fare evader, but if you did it one time, that's a summons. If you do it a bunch of times, you're asking for higher consequences, because I'm very stringent on this point. You can't evade the fare. You can't jump the turnstile. It's not legal. It's not right. So this is one where there has to be a consequence. What we're debating here is what type of consequence. Now, already NYPD has greatly turned towards summons instead of arrests. And then in some other areas, as you know, like low-level marijuana possession, they've turned entirely to summons. That's fair from my point of view, but I would not want to see a situation where, for example, if someone is constantly fare evading, they can't do that. There has to be a bigger consequence then. Or if because they had an outstanding warrant for something else, there was some reticence to arrest them on a more serious charge. I don't think we should ever have that problem either. So I'm sure the NYPD and the district attorney can work it through and come up with some balance, but I want to recognize how much the NYPD has done already to create a better approach.
Follow up on that. I remember you were asked this several times at your Staten Island town hall. You gave a similar answer about fare
About the buses.
Yeah. I'm wondering, especially in light of your lack of support for the Fair Fares campaign, what do you say to people of very limited means who say they have to get somewhere and for whatever reason they feel like they have no choice but to jump the turnstile?
I don't accept that way of thinking. I just don't. I have done a lot in my life to try and help people who are of limited means. This whole administration is devoted to reducing income inequality. You've heard that our projections by the end of this year, about 280,000 people will have been lifted out of poverty in the time this administration has been here. We're very focused on efforts to give people more resources, higher wages, better benefits, better paying jobs, lightening the burden on families, things like pre-K, after school. That's where we approach it on a policy level. But there's no way in hell anyone should be evading the fare. That would create chaos. If there's some people like at that town hall meeting, I think they were people of good heart, but they were basically saying, "Oh, let our young people just not pay the fare." Where does that end? Is it anyone just decides each day whether they want to pay a fare or not, depending on like what mood you're in or what you had for breakfast? Like, no, everyone has to pay their fare. So you mischaracterize a little bit my view on the quote-unquote fair fare concept. I believe it's a great idea, and I believe the state of New York, which you may know controls the MTA, I don't know if I've mentioned that the state of New York should make that a priority. I think that's a commendable priority. We can't afford that right now. But I think the more essential point is we're trying to create a situation where people have more resources, have more opportunity. But in the meantime, God forbid you don't have the resources you need. The choice is not to evade the fare. That's not acceptable.
How serious is the risk to funding
I've been down in Washington a few times. I've spoken to a number of senators, a number of people from Congress. We're working really hard. They understand the situation. They understand that New York City is the #1 terror target. I can't predict the future, but I don't think they're willing to put New York City at risk. I think the funding is going to, I think we'll be in a good place. We'll be able to take care of the city. Yes?
The Vance's office has said they came to an agreement with the department to convert fair meters from precinct.
No, that's not true. We're in the process of we're working together to find a solution to reduce the number of online arrests. A tab is a civil summons. Yeah. Most people get tabs. Yeah, we're looking at the recidivist policy as to who will be arrested and who will be given a Transit Adjudication Bureau summons. So that's one thing that we're working with the DA's office on. Yes.
Just a question regarding back to July the 4th.
Thank you.
There's a report that the NYPD and other law enforcement in New Jersey also have been visiting car rental and truck rental locations over the past few weeks to alert them to keep an eye open for any suspicious activity. Is that true?
That's something, and John, I don't know if you want to talk about that. That's something we've been doing for a while.
So we have a couple of programs. One is the SHIELD program through the Counterterrorism Bureau, where we push intelligence information in real time to private entities about current trends in terrorism, indicators, and so on. The other is in the Intelligence Bureau, there's the Nexus program, and I think that's what you're talking about. Under the Nexus program, after the Nice attack and also after the Rumia Inspire magazine's suggested truck rammings, we sent Intelligence Bureau detectives to pretty much every truck rental place in the metropolitan area that rents the kinds of trucks that you wouldn't need a commercial driver's license to rent, and talked about suspicious indicators, and really underlined how to get in touch with us if they saw suspicious activity. There's a fair turnover in those businesses, so we've been back a number of times just to reinforce that message, and we've pushed a lot of email and flyers towards them because we want to keep that awareness up there. The terrorist groups have certainly been pushing for it, and we're certainly pushing with the industry for that level of awareness.
Josh.
Thank you. I have one more 4th of July question, then I have an off-topic other question.
Okay. That'll be your 4th question then. Okay. Okay.
Before the radiation detectors and the vapor wake dogs and the long guns, there's always this area, I mean, no matter how far out you go, there's always this area that's before the screening section of any particular screening checkpoint. And I wonder, I don't know how detailed you want to get into tactics.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to get into very much detail, but we're aware of in big venues of where queues start. And if you keep backing them up, there's got to be a queue starting somewhere. But we have a strategy in place to deal with that. No, I don't. Thank you. All right. All right.
The 19th. I don't know if you or Chief Boyce may have, there's an elderly man robbed on the 19th. You guys put a sheet out this morning. I don't know if you could be a little bit more. Thank you.
We have a robbery of a 76-year-old male in the 19th precinct about 1:10 in the morning. This is on Park Avenue at 61st Street, excuse me. Walking down the street, they took his wallet, they grabbed him from behind and removed it. We put out pictures on it. We have a male Hispanic, appears to be a male Hispanic and a male black. At this point, we believe they ran probably to the subway on Lexington Avenue, so we're doing our video right there. Not too much more. There's some credit cards taken as well as the case goes forward. This happened Saturday, so right now we're going after video and see if the cards were used, and also video down in the subway. That's where we are with the case right now. But we put out the pictures so someone can, if they know them, they're fairly pretty good pictures. If they know them, please call Crime Stoppers so we can move forward with the case. Right.
Another kind of thing just like that. And if you can give us an update on the body found in the water.
Sure, the body. I'll start with the body in the water. Last night, we believe the mother of that victim walked into the 7-6 precinct and said, that appears to be my daughter. I know that tattoo. That, too, is a tribute tattoo to an aunt. I don't want to identify her yet because there's other parts of the identification procedure we have to do at the ME's office. But that young lady is from New Jersey. We have an active homicide case on it right now. If you saw where the dismemberment was, it was done where it could not possibly be an accident. So that's where we are with the case right now. Your other question? About the home invasion?
No, this is another older gentleman.
Elderly? Okay. I don't have that in front of me, Miles. We track our elderly robberies. People start at 60. Even though I'm against that, but people start at 60 and we go, yes, okay. But we track it throughout the city. I believe that the robberies are down right now. The only thing we're up in elderly crime right now is grand larceny, and usually those are scams run specifically towards elderly people. I'll go.
Go over in whatever detail you might have how you came to arrest in the 8-1 precinct a man in North Carolina for a murder from a couple of years ago.
We had him early on. There was 2 people with the same, very similar name, and it's Moore is the last name. I don't have the first name in front of me. Terrible circumstance. He walked into a grocery store, shot and killed a family man with several young children. Case very important to me. We were looking for this guy for quite some time. Because of we have all the detectives who fight traditional crime in the Detective Bureau now, we were able to get a source of information that identified him down south in the Carolinas. So we went down there, we arrested him there. We've been looking for this fellow for quite some time. Yeah.
Was he from there originally?
No,
was he off
my information was he was a Bed-Stuy guy and went down there. I don't know if he had family sources down there or not, but that's where we got him. He was going inside a hospital. Yeah.
Just if I could, there was a Bronx murder overnight and also one yesterday on Morris. Could you tell us what you might have?
Two homicides in the Bronx yesterday. First one was in Soundview houses, where an individual was shot twice, close range. Apparently, we're investigating now. There was a dice game just prior to that. We don't know if that played a role in it or not. So we're going forward with the investigation now. We have a hooded male who retreats back into a building. So that's where our investigation is right now. It's on the overnight. The second one was up in the 4-4 precinct. That was a fight inside a bodega. We have very good video in the bodega where they identified all the parties. And this looks like it started from a robbery about an hour before on a Ferragamo belt, pretty substantial belt, cost a lot of money. And that was one gang against another gang. So we have identified perpetrators on that. We're seeking them now. So I don't want to put their names out yet. I want to give my fugitive enforcement guys a chance to arrest them there. But that's going to be closed.
Belt. Who wore the belt?
Who had the belt? Yeah, it is. We know who had the belt. One person was robbed of his Ferragamo belt. He went and got some friends of his. They went into the grocery store. And this is preliminary. This is what we have right now. And it may change. And we identified the 2 other fellows. They're well known to us. So we saw them on video. We knew who they were.
Chief Boyce, the Park Slope murder from last week, the woman sort of at the center of that is now saying she was raped. Can you talk about where that investigation is at this point?
We are speaking with the Brooklyn DA in regards to that right now. That is, as you know, we have 2 persons arrested. We were looking for 1, but we're sitting with the Brooklyn DA to see exactly what role she did play in that homicide.
John, last up, please.
Commissioner, does the placard, does the parking placard crackdown continue, and how successful is it going?
I'll let Tom Chan, Chief Channel, speak about that. He's running the unit.
Since the announcement of the placard unit, they've issued over 2,700 summonses. They've also commenced 9 cases of disciplinary action against police officers. Since the beginning of the year, we've also done placard enforcement on a regular basis. So for the year to date, we have over 15,600 summonses that are issued to placards and related to that. And that's 13% more than we did last year. So we are continuing.
Thank you, folks. We're going to move on to questions for the mayor. All right, this mic.
I got it now. Okay. Grace.
I wanted to ask about the posting you wrote from Medium about your legal bills. You had previously said that the city would not pay your legal bills. Now you're saying $2 million. I'm wondering if you can tell us how you came to that decision and also how you determined what was the city was going to pay for versus outside donations, since the investigation is largely focused on fundraising for your campaign, for the campaign for One New York.
Again, this is, yeah, I got you. That termination is obviously made by the law department, which ones they believe are applicable to city service. Said in the Medium Post that we think the number for the truly outside stuff is about $300,000, but that's still being tabulated. But to your first question, I thought about for a long time. A lot of people had said in the beginning, including some of the good government groups and I think at least one of the editorial boards, that it would make sense to treat me the same way as any other city employee. And I was reticent at first, but the more I've thought about it, the more I think that that does make sense, and that's a good standard going forward for anyone. I've said to you guys, you know, if something happened to any of you, your company should cover your legal costs. That's true of folks in government as part of their public service. So I thought about it, and I just came to the conclusion that it was consistent and it was the right thing to do to just resolve this.
It's problematic that you were very public repeatedly saying taxpayers will not foot the bill.
I said what I felt at the time, but as things have continued and, you know, facts have continued to come in, I thought about it more, and I just think this is the straightforward way to resolve this.
Yesterday, part of the explanation you gave for not adding more into MTA funding was that you were worried about things like Obamacare repeal cuts.
Yes.
So when every penny counts, what do you say to commuters who now hear the city's got another $2 billion to swallow that could have potentially gone to the MTA?
I'm sorry, when you say...
You have this $2 million legal bill now. The taxpayer's going to cover at a time when every penny counts.
Yeah, I think it's apples and oranges. What we're talking about in terms of the MTA is obviously in the billions of dollars. What we're talking about here is a small amount in the scheme of things in terms of the city's legal expenses. But again, I came to the conclusion it was a consistent standard that could be applied to this administration or any administration going forward. And that's just good to resolve this matter and move forward. Marcia.
Mr. Mayor, CBS has been doing a number of town halls in preparation for mayoral debates, which I know you're looking forward to.
I'm ready, Marcia.
So in Harlem, it turns out that there's a lot of people who are very upset about developers trying to change the name of Harlem to Soho.
Yep.
And I wonder...
Soha.
Soha, sorry.
Yeah. Soho's taken already.
Well, they're very, very upset,
Yep.
and they wonder if there's anything that you, as mayor of the city of New York, can do to preserve a name that means so much to the people who have
Sure.
lived there for generations.
Marcia, I agree with the residents of Harlem that think the real estate term, quote-unquote, Soha, is a bad idea. I think it's ridiculous, and I think realtors should stop using it. Look, it's a free country. Freedom of speech is guaranteed. We can't tell a realtor they can't use a name for a neighborhood. But I think this one is just really ill-considered. Harlem is a place to be tremendously proud of for 1,000 reasons, a place anyone would be lucky to live in. And I don't know what these realtors are thinking in particular, given that obviously the neighborhood has a big challenge. I'm sure you've heard from people of gentrification pressures. So there's clearly plenty of people of means who want to live there. I don't know why on earth they think it needs a name change. So I share the residents' feeling that this is... in some ways, it's off-putting and in some ways insulting. But it's not something we can legislate or mandate the realtors' language on. That's something they have a right to make their own choice on.
As people change the names of locations.
This is realtors. This is not the
but
city.
Realtors call it, Soho, Nolita. It seems to sort of take on a life of its own.
Yeah, but we don't buy this one. I've seen them try it in some places where it doesn't take on a life of its own. I don't tend to use those real estate terms. I think the historic names of the neighborhoods are the right ones, and the city, I think it's fair to say, if you look at city documents, they overwhelmingly focus on the traditional names. This one is not going to take on a life of its own, I assure you. I think it's ridiculous. Harlem is Harlem. It's one of the great neighborhoods of this city, and it's a place to be proud of. Juliet.
Getting back to the legal fees, so what's the distinction? What is the $300,000 that you fundraise for? What does that cover?
So a lot of the investigations focused on issues related to city service, but some focus, as you remember, on specifically electoral issues like the state Senate campaign. So that's the separation.
For the state Senate?
Well, so that's, again, these are pending numbers. These are approximations while there's still more being tabulated, but essentially that's the way to think about it. Issues that relate to work as mayor versus something that's specifically about electoral politics. I think that's the... Hold on, Marcia, I'll come back to you. Marcia, give me a second. Let me go around, we'll come back.
I can defer to Marcia.
We like to give everyone their chance, then we come back for seconds. It's like the dining room.
We'd like to weigh in on the MSNBC thing with the Trump tweets, Mika Brzezinski.
Yeah.
Would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I tweeted about this yesterday. I think it's disgusting that someone would attack Mika Brzezinski in such a low manner to begin with, anyone. But as the President of the United States, it's, I think, distressing. I'm proud of the Republicans who came out and said enough is enough, this is unacceptable, because it really is unacceptable. He obviously has a hang-up about professional women. He has a tendency to insult accomplished women. Like, let's look at it and see it for what it is. And he's got to stop. He's supposed to represent all of us. He's not representing all of us if he attacks women journalists on a regular basis, and he clearly singles out women. So it's not acceptable. I think she does a great job. I don't have to always agree with her to say I think she's a really good journalist. I think that show does a real public service. I think they go out of their way to give a chance for different opinions to be heard. And so it's even more distressing to me they attacked a journalist who tries very hard to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm sorry, just to follow up on the legal fund or the legal issues. So when you're saying the state Senate stuff is the outside stuff, in the U.S. Attorney's statement after the investigations ended, you noted that a large part of the investigation was into asking for donations from people, and then later whether you had taken action on their behalf as mayor. So is that kind of stuff what you're qualifying as government?
I'm trying to offer a broad guideline. I'm not a lawyer. The law department has to make the determination which are applicable, because this obviously would be part of their budget. They've already had to do that with other members of the administration, so they will make the decision on what is something related to public service versus what is something not. I'm just reminding you that a piece of those investigations was about electoral politics, but I can't parse how each bill is determined. That's something the law department does.
And just in terms of the $300,000, have you established a legal defense fund
No.
to collect that money yet? And are you awaiting action from the city council to sort of, I guess, mitigate what the COIB told you in terms of how much you could?
Yeah, so no, we don't have a legal defense fund. The statement today makes clear, we did have real conversations with the Conflict Interest Board, as you know. In the end, there was not a clear solution. I think even if you look at their statements, they've indicated the only way to resolve things going forward and have an actual policy is through legislation. I think the council is open to that. I don't think it'll happen immediately, but I think they're open to figuring out some kind of process that would work for anybody, not just me. And so when that is established, then that would be the natural time to put together a legal defense fund. And what I said also today is, whatever that legislation ends up being, I will disclose, or my legal defense fund would disclose any donors. I presume that would be in the legislation, honestly, because I think the council would have that assumption and that tendency anyway. But whatever the outcome of that legislation, we will disclose.
Actually, clarification back to the marijuana for a minute. Will the NYPD continue to arrest people for, I'm sorry, not marijuana, fare evasion? Will the NYPD continue to arrest people for fare evasion even though it's not going to be prosecuted anymore for that?
I'll start, and I think the commissioner and others might want to further clarify. Look, first of all, as the commissioner said, there's a conversation going on with the Manhattan DA, who I have great respect for. But from our perspective, that conversation is not complete. So he's issued a new sense of where he wants to go. I don't think all the conversations with the PD have happened to determine how everyone's going to work together. So that's Manhattan. But what I want to say about the whole city is, again, remember, if 75% of the time you're talking about a summons already, our central focus is when we have a case of fare evasion that is a repeat offender, that indicates something else when it comes to addressing the problem and stopping the problem. So that has to be accounted for in any approach. And the second thing, which both Commissioner O'Neill and Commissioner Bratton have talked about many times over the last 3.5 years, sometimes a fare evasion stop leads to something much bigger. Someone with an outstanding warrant for something serious, or God forbid, someone with an illegal weapon. So I just want to differentiate. I'm sure there's plenty of situations where it's someone doing it for the first time. Those folks, we want to give a summons and we want them to understand not to do it again. But there are other situations that are much more serious. Do you want to talk to us?
At the risk of repeating myself, we're still in conversation with DA Vance's office, so our policies are going to remain in place until we come up with some way to move forward together.
Just to follow up, what more is there to know? We're not prosecuting.
We have our procedures. We have our transit, the way we identify transit recidivists. And I think it's important that we continue to do business the way we do. We are the public safety experts, and I'm sure we'll be able to come up with a compromise of some sort with the DA's office. Yeah.
I would remind you that, you know what, any policy, ours or anyone else's, still has to work in practice. And we have to work with our partner agencies. So he can say, this is our intention, and I believe he's doing it in good faith, but we also have to talk about unintended consequences and work that through. And sometimes people put out a policy, and then when they see things in practice, they evaluate. So we want to have more conversation. Willie?
I'm confused by your explanation about your reversal on whether or not taxpayers should pay for your legal fees. Back in February, you said, I'm going to read you what you said, all legal efforts on my behalf are not paid for by the taxpayer. That's money that will have to be raised, so that's the reality.
Yep.
And you went on to say, that's the reality. The bottom line is no public dollars are going into the legal work on my behalf. So that doesn't sound like the words of somebody who hadn't thought about it. It's not a question of thinking about it. Was this simply a politically expedient thing to say at the time that you were under pressure from the investigation, and now that they're done, you can change course?
No, I thought about it at the time, and I thought that was the right approach. But a lot has transpired since then. A lot of voices in this city that I respect have said, including some of the most prominent good government groups, that it would make more sense to be covered with taxpayer dollars. That's a new piece of the equation in my thinking. I think, obviously, at the time, I was thinking of a model in terms of what a legal defense fund would look like that is not available. That's another part of the equation. So to me, when I looked at all the factors and thought about it more, it actually makes more sense to just do it this way and put it behind us.
Urged you to let taxpayers pay?
Again, I think it's public statements that are available to you from organizations like, and they're not saying they urged me personally, called me up. I'm saying their position has been that there is something appropriate about public service legal fees being paid through taxpayer dollars. Citizens Union, I believe, has that position. I believe Common Cause has that position. You can ask them. But again, there's not the option for the legal defense fund we thought would be there, and I think this is the way to proceed.
Last question. Quick follow-up on that, and then about Albany session, if that's okay. After.
Sure.
You're sort of distancing yourself from the city council process here, but on some legislation, you work with city council members to introduce things that you want to see. So are you talking with specific council members about legislation and then letting them take it from there? Where do you have the sense that something's moving?
Yeah, I mean, we know from, I have not had the conversations my staff has, but we know there is interest because I understand there's a bigger issue. And basically the COIB process brought up the fact that there is not a governing rule or law at this point. So there's receptivity certainly from some council members to act on it. We have not had a conversation of exactly how to proceed. This one, I think, because of the nature of it, is something where obviously the council has to feel comfort about how to approach it. So now, given that we've got the budget behind us and a lot of other important matters, it's a good time to start those conversations and figure out what it's going to take.
No specific council members?
I don't know the specific council members, no.
You talked about the process that you don't speak to understand of how it works up there.
I don't think I'm alone.
Fair.
I may be in the vast majority.
But you made a deal related to charter schools that you sort of came out to talk about the results of the session. You made some deal, but you won't explain the details of that deal. That seems to be a little contradictory.
No, of course I'll explain them when everything is finished, which I think will be quite soon. There's a lot of parties to this process, and I'm being very transparent about the fact that we talked about some real important issues related to charters. We came to some specific understandings, details still being worked out. Of course it'll be published, and then you'll have at it. You'll have every opportunity to make questions. But I have to emphasize, and this was important to what Speaker Hasty said in the beginning, it was not a legislative action. It was not something that had to be approved by the Senate and the Assembly formally. This is me deciding, as mayor of New York City, with my administrative capacity, that there were some things we could do that would address some outstanding concerns of the charters, and I thought they were fair. But, you know, as soon as it's cooked, as soon as it's finalized, yes, everything will be public, and then we'll happily take questions on it.
Just real quick, on May 31st, I think it was, you said we're about to launch a major effort on voting reform. Mm-hmm. You held 2 teletown halls. Mm-hmm. Is that a major effort?
Well, I thought it was the beginning of a major effort, and we found quickly, you saw this session was pretty unusual. It was not like any session I can remember. The leaders, you remember the day the leaders met for the first time was astoundingly late in the session. And for a long time, including as recently as Wednesday morning, we thought that very skinny bill that the governor had put forward was all that was going to get through. So we started an effort that I thought had a real chance to make an impact. We found a situation where the legislature and the governor were expecting a very limited session. I'm still glad we pushed for it, and we're going to be pushing a lot more because it has to happen. To me, it's an inevitability. Everything in that assembly package will become the law in New York State. It's just a matter of when. But this was, I was surprised at how this whole session evolved. I don't think I can think of anything exactly like it. Now, Marcia, after you. Go ahead.
Okay. I've got kind of 2 here. I'll ask them one at a time.
I appreciate that.
So the first one is...
ask them simultaneously.
So the first one is on the Legal Defense Fund legislation from the City Council. Are you concerned that there could be an appearance of you asking the City Council to change the law in a way that would financially benefit you, that you don't have to pay, you could ask other people to pitch in and help you pay this $300?
No, because it's a bigger issue. I don't. I think the council members will immediately understand this is something for anybody in elective office that has this kind of situation and needs some kind of process for dealing with it. So, you know, I think here's the good news. They, to legislate, will have a full process. Unlike certain legislative bodies, the City Council actually holds hearings on legislation. That was a reference to the U.S. Senate. So, you know, a bill will be put together. It does not exist now. A bill will be put together. It will go through hearings. There'll be a whole process. There'll be a public vote. But that's to set a policy the City of New York does not have right now. When we started on this road, you know, I assumed there was some governing policy about legal defense funds. Turns out there isn't. So now there will be.
On Twitter who are wondering about this, what is up with the cargo shorts and the belt at the gym?
It's a very practical solution to an important challenge. You know, it's they're comfortable. You could put stuff in your pockets. Style, no, not my goal. You know, I am not here to impress you on a style level. I'm here to go to the gym. Damn it, Marcia.
Well,
scaring you, aren't I, Marcia?
Well, the video is never mind.
Hey, say it loud, say it proud. It's not like I don't know there are cameras around, right? So I'll make my own radical fashion choices. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to ask you about your legal bills. It was, we now know it was $2.3 million. I wonder if you thought that was a fair legal bill, if you asked for the usual mayor's discount, if you thought
I have not talked to anyone about the specific ways the bills are tabulated because I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand that.
$2.3 million and go, oh my God! I mean, that's a huge amount.
With lawyers, nothing surprises me. and obviously there was a lot of work to do. So look, the law department will work out all the final details. They'll figure out what's fair. And, you know, that to me is something that they've been obviously doing with all the other city employees in this case. They'll do it with me too. But look, it was a long year, as you know. I think it's great that it's past us now, so we can all focus on one thing and one thing only, which is what the people of this city need. And that's what I want to do. Thanks. Have a very happy 4th of July, everyone.
Yeah.